So hi everybody, my name is Nalbone, and I want to point out from the start that home brewing is a hobby of mine. And my family got me a kit for Christmas about 12 years ago, and I'd worked from the kit, for the last, say, 10 years. But in the last couple years, I've started to experiment more. But really, my day job is as an information technology professional. I've worked for over 30 years in aerospace and pharmaceuticals. So my wife and I, Terry and I, watch Jeopardy every night. And a couple weeks back, we saw this question appear. So here I am working hard on this presentation, and Jeopardy was able to whittle down what is beer into a single one. So damn you, Alex, Trebek, you're brewing. So getting back to craft brew, let me level set for everybody. Yeah, it's anti-establishment, but there's many different levels. So you can have factory-like settings like a Lagunitas in Chicago, full-scale restaurants like Triumph and New Hope, smaller microbreweries like Mad Prince's that can produce 15 gallons at a time. Now the process can basically be whittled down to these steps, and the basic ingredients are really, water, grains, hops, yeast, temperature, and time. And so this is sort of my rendition of those 4 steps. But to me, home brewing is not that process. It's really going outside on my deck or on my patio with my loyal brew dog and brew cat, putting something on the grill, listening to music, and just kind of being out in nature. That's what home brewing is to me. But back to the process. So it starts with grains. Grains are really the backbone of the beer, come in a variety of colors and flavors. It's going to add to your beer. You start, the first step is called mashing the beer. So you put it in about 150 degree temperature to steep for about an hour, and it converts the starches to sugar. And once you're done with that process, you don't want to put it to waste. So I've kind of upcycled the grains afterwards and found a lot of recipes to turn those grains into cereal or dog biscuits, granola bars, you name it. But next in the process, you bring that water, which is turned into what's called wort, to a boil, and you add hops. So hops are plants. For me, I usually work off of the pellet form of those. And then, again, there's a bunch of varieties. They may be pungent, they may be citrusy, they may be floral or herbal. And depending on how long they're in there, it contributes to the bitterness of the beer. Once that's done, you quickly cool off the beer and you add yeast. Yeast is a living organism, and what it does is it eats the sugars, burps out carbon dioxide, and you can see in the fermenter with the airlock the activity that's taking place. You aerate the yeast, and it takes about roughly 2 weeks for that fermentation process to end. Now, optionally, you can add different flavorings. So you got to be careful because you can potentially ruin your beer by doing this. You don't want to turn all your hard work into something that tastes like a Jolly Rancher candy bar. So the next step, once that's done, is bottling. And so this is sort of the assembly line aspect of what I do. So I'll dissolve sugar, and that adds to the carbonation that beer has. And dispense it from the bottling bucket, cap it, put it away, and it'll sit in condition for a couple of weeks before you can drink it. The unglamorous part of brewing beer is how thorough you have to be with cleaning the equipment and all the surface areas, as well as the precision you need to have with monitoring the temperature and things like the specific gravity of the beer. Back to the fun part of drinking beer and what kind of beer to drink. So I like to go to brew fests. It's an opportunity not only to hang out with friends, but to try things you might not ordinarily try, like say sour beers, which I've yet to really enjoy. But it's a neat place. You also get souvenir, mugs. Another thing I do is I look on apps. There's one I use called Untapped, where you can sort of a social network of beer drinking. You see what your friends have tried. You can rate beers. You get rewarded with badges for different styles you try. But you got to be careful. If, say, I ever need a liver transplant, they may look at this and say. I also read books to find recipes, or I'll use a homebrewers community website like Brewtoad to find out what to try in the beer brewing. You can find what's worked for people, what's not, and so I share all my recipes up there as well. One of the most fun things about beer brewing is coming up with a name. So it typically relates to some activity I've done in my life. Usually the sillier the name, the better. One of my favorites is I peed in my pants. My daughter helps me with most of the So one story in particular, my daughter lives in Chicago, and beside where she lived was a community garden, and one night she was awoken by cock-a-doodle-doo. So the legend has it is that this rooster would go from garden to garden through the Chicago sewer system, and thus my farmhouse ale became known as Intrepid Soilers. And it was that beer that introduced me to Jim and Kurt Ludwig, who are the owners of Mad Prince's Brewing in Buckingham. And I brought in a sample. Amazingly, they liked what I brewed, and they said sometimes they have guest brewers come and brew with them. So I had the incredible opportunity to work, with these master brewers on their professional equipment. And if that didn't make my head swell enough, getting to see my beer for sale on their chalkboard, on their menu and website, seeing people order flights of it or take home growlers was an experience I'll never forget. But for me, the real benefit of home brewing is the camaraderie that it brings. So whether I have a beer with friends after a run or a reunion with my college buddies, quality time with my son and daughter, all those things. And to my wife, Terry, who doesn't really even like beer, but she supports me nonetheless in this silly hobby. So thank you, honey. Cheers.